purpose of this video is to present the Budget Advisory Council's review of the 2024 Oaktree HOA proposed budget. First, let's get right to how to pay for the expenses. Then we'll summarize our work over the last 5 months and the 3 main factors impacting the budget. Finally, we'll review the proposed budget. We don't want to keep you waiting any longer, so let's review our recommendation for how to pay for the 2024 expenses. Our recommended balance of assessments and cash to pay the expenses was based on the latest financial statement, August 2023. The cash can help us get through the 8+ year build-out period. Our charge is the 2024 budget, but we would be short-sighted if we didn't consider the remaining build-out period. So we don't want to use too much cash in any single year. As you have seen in the 2024 budget mailed to you by the board, the expenses are $1,370,000. The current assessments of $232 per month would only cover $974,400, leaving a shortfall of $395,600. The available cash balance at the end of August was $780,000. If we use all cash to cover the shortfall, it would use 51% of the cash. We thought that burning down that high of a percentage of cash would be fiscally irresponsible. If we used all assessments to cover the shortfall, it would raise assessments to $326. None of us want to see that large of an assessment increase. So we worked with the board to find a reasonable balance between burning down cash and assessment increase that we could all live with. We believe we found that reasonable balance, with 9% of the shortfall being covered by an increase in assessments to $240, raising $33,600, and 91% being covered by burning down cash of $362,000. You can think of it this way. If we all pay 27 cents more per day in assessments, we can burn down cash of $2.87 per day to cover expenses. So how does a $240 assessment compare with other 55+ communities in the Puget Sound area? The 2023 assessment at Jubilee is $257. The 2 Trilogy 55+ communities are at $299 and $342 before a 2024 increase. Next, the Budget Advisory Council started our work 5 months ago in June. While waiting for NOVA's proposed budget, we reviewed our prior year approach with our 2 new members and started reviewing the 2023 monthly financial statements. We met with members of the landscape and pavilion committees to get their insights on expenses. Based on our review, we agreed on the assumptions and approach we would use for the 2024 budget. We used our assumptions to complete our financial model for the 2024 budget. We received NOVA's draft budget on August 9th and met with Christina and Brandy on August 11th to review it. We reviewed every expense and got answers to every question and request for supporting documentation. A large portion of our budget consists of contracted services. When we compared the NOVA budget to our financial model, we found we came to similar conclusions on most of the expense items. We identified 15 expense items where we proposed adjustments to the amounts. We discussed these items with Christina and Brandy and came to an agreement on the amounts. We want you to know that our interactions with NOVA and the board were positive, informative, and collaborative. Next, let's discuss how the 2024 budget expenses were impacted by 3 main factors: inflation, the villages, and the new landscape budget. As we have all experienced, inflation makes everything cost more. Every contract service rate for 2024 went up. As we expected, 11 months of operating expenses in 2024 versus 5 months in 2023 for the villages has a large impact on the 2024 expenses. You recently received an email from the HOA board explaining landscape services and expenses. Landscape services have always been the largest portion of our expenses. Now let's review the proposed budget by covering each category, starting at the top. We will compare the 2024 budget to the 2023 budget. As we've reported in the quarterly HOA board meetings, the 2023 actual expenses have been tracking close to budget. Income is based on 350 homes paying assessments. We project 320 homes paying by January 2024 and the equivalent of 30 additional new homes paying a full year based on 60 homes selling throughout the year in 2024. The monthly assessments increased by $8 or 3%. Administrative expenses increased $34,000 or 10%. The primary reason for the increase was the change to a full-time general manager. Since the 2023 budget included an amount for a partial year new management position, this increase was expected. Landscape maintenance expenses increased $188,000 or 57%. The reason for the increase is the new landscape budget. It has the largest impact on our assessment increase. Utility expenses increased $3,000 or 2%, a minimal increase. Pavilion expenses increased $14,000 or 24%. The primary reason for the increase is improved insurance coverage to provide protection for the replacement value of the pavilion. Villages expenses increased $130,000 or 157%. The primary reason for the increase is budgeting for 11 months of operations in 2024, where 2023 was budgeted for 5 months. The second reason for the increase is improved insurance coverage to provide protection for the replacement value of the villages. The annual reserve contribution decreased $39,000 or 44%. The reserve study guides the amount of the annual reserve contribution. Considering the large increases in expenses for 2024, the board has reduced the 2024 reserve contribution to ease the pressure for a larger assessment increase. Finally, the total operating expenses increased $330,000 or 32%. This is a very large single-year increase caused by the three main factors: inflation, the villages, and the new landscape budget all occurring in the same year. With a 32% total expense increase, we decided to burn down a large amount of cash to hold the assessment increase down to $8 or 3%. So how does the $8 break down by the expense categories? Administrative accounts for 82 cents. Landscape maintenance is $4.56. Utilities is 7 cents. Pavilion is 34 cents. Villages is $3.15. And the annual reserve contribution is minus 95 cents. As this chart clearly shows, landscape maintenance and the villages are the reason for $7.71 or 96% of the assessment increase. In closing, early in our process, we agreed our approach should protect our community from getting anywhere near a special assessment. So we adopted our fiscally conservative approach to the budget. Our main reason for taking this approach is the financial health and strength of our Oak Tree HOA can have a positive or negative effect on the value of our homes. A well-funded HOA is an asset. An underfunded HOA is a liability. We want our HOA to be well-funded so it is a positive asset. Some homeowners may disagree with our approach. That's okay. There is more than one way to approach a budget. Some homeowners may disagree with the budget amount for a specific expense. With hundreds of people, there is always going to be differences in opinion. That's okay. The Budget Advisory Council doesn't always agree on the amount of every expense in the final budget. We're working to find an amount that is reasonable. After 5 months of working on the 2024 budget, We feel we have a reasonable budget for 2024 that will keep our HOA fiscally healthy going into 2025. We are asking for your support by voting yes to ratify the 2024 budget.
Thanks for watching.